Maghrebis or Maghrebians are the inhabitants of the Maghreb countries in western North Africa. The bulk of the Maghrebis population is made up primarily from the Libyan people, who are white to olive-skinned Caucasoid people and the first modern humans to settle in North Africa, but also is made up from people of Phoenician origin, of Roman origin, of Hellenic origin, of Egyptian and Levantin origin, of Iberian origin, of Italian origin, of Turkic, Balkan or other Mediterranean origin as well as of Sub-Saharan origin. Maghrebis were known in the medieval times as Moors. It is believed that the term Moor is derived from Mauri, the name given by the Romans to the inhabitant of North Morocco and Algeria, which itself is thought to be derived from the name of a local tribe which were first to come in contact with the Romans. Origins: the inhabitants of the region are predominantly Arab-Berber. The Arabs and Berbers, united through Islam, are the main ethnic and cultural elements, but it is important to bear in mind that over the centuries the Greater Maghreb has been a melting pot of many other ethnic groups and cultures. Before the Arab conquest, Carthaginians, Greeks, Romans, Vandals, and Byzantines colonized the Greater Maghreb and contributed to the development of its culture. Later, Moriscos and Mulades settled in the Greater Maghreb. Additionally, there are Turks who came over with the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. A small Turkish-descended population exists, particularly in Tunisia and Algeria. Other European contributions included French, Italians, and others captured by the Corsairs and then turned into slaves. Nowadays, a majority of the current population in the Greater Maghreb consider themselves generally Arab in identity and culture, but are mostly of mixed Arab and Berber origin. There is a significant population who identify as non-Arab in the region. This population is the Lebu, who did not adopt Arabic language over the times and who kept their distinct Berber dialect. These populations live mostly in the mountainous areas, mostly in the Rif Mountains, the Atlas and the Souss Valley, the Kabylia region in Algeria, and Jebel Nfousa in Tunisia. Historically, the Greater Maghreb was also home to significant Jewish communities, including the Maghrebim Jews, who predated the 7th century introduction and conversion of the majority of Berbers to Islam. Later they were augmented by Iberian Sephardi Jews fleeing the Iberian Catholic Reconquista who established a presence in North Africa, chiefly in the urban trading centers. Many Sephardic Jews emigrated to North America in the early 19th century or to France and Israel later in the 20th century. On the Saharan southern edge of the Greater Maghreb are large communities of black Africans, sometimes called Haratin, who orally identify themselves as the original inhabitants of southern Oasis. Religion: historic records of religion in the Greater Maghreb region show its gradual inclusion in the classical world, with coastal colonies established first by Phoenicians, some Greeks, and later extensive conquest and colonization by the Romans. By the 2nd century Common Era, the area had become a center of Latin-speaking Christianity. Both Roman settlers and Romanized populations converted to Christianity. The region produced figures such as Christian church writer Tertullian and Christian church martyrs or leading figures such as Saint Cyprian of Carthage, Saint Monica, her son the philosopher Saint Augustine, Bishop of Hippo, and Saint Julia of Carthage. The region was a birthplace of many Christian movements like Arianism and Donatism, now casted off. The domination of Christianity ended when Arab invasions brought Islam in 647. Carthage fell in 698 and the remainder of the region followed in subsequent decades. Gradual Islamization proceeded, although surviving letters showed correspondence from regional Christians to Rome up until the 9th century. Christianity was still a living faith. Christian bishoprics and dioceses continued to be active, with relations continuing with Rome. As late as Pope Benedict VII reign, a new Archbishop of Carthage was consecrated. Evidence of Christianity in the region then faded through the 10th century. During the 7th century, the region's peoples began their nearly total conversion to Islam. There is a small but thriving Jewish community, as well as a small Christian community. Most Muslims follow the Sunni Maliki school. Small Ibadi communities remain in some areas. A strong tradition of venerating marabouts and saints' tombs is found throughout regions inhabited by Berbers. Any map of the region demonstrates the tradition by the proliferation of cities, showing places named after the marabout. Like some other religious traditions, this has substantially decreased over the 20th century. A network of zawiyas traditionally helped proliferate basic literacy and knowledge of Islam in rural regions. Culture. Diaspora. France. According to Michel Tribalat, a researcher at INED, there were 3.5 million people of Maghrebi origin living in France in 2005, corresponding to 5.8% of the total French metropolitan population. Maghrebis have settled mainly in the industrial regions in France, especially in the Paris region. Many famous French people like Edith Piaf, Isabelle Adjani, Arnaud Montebourg, Alain Bachung, Danny Boone and many others have Maghrebi ancestry. According to INSEE, 16% of newborns in France between 2006 and 2008 have at least one grandparent born in the Greater Maghreb. Below is a table of population of Maghrebi origin in France. Numbers are in thousands. In 2005, the percentage of young people under 18 of Maghrebi origin were about 7% in metropolitan France, 12% in Greater Paris, 13% in Lyon, 21% in Perpignan, 22% in French Dark-Opéra of Seine-Saint-Denis, 37% in 18th arrondissement of Paris and 40% in several arrondissements of Marseille. According to other sources, between 5 and 8 million people of Maghrebian origin live in France, and between 150,000 and 300,000 people of Maghrebian origin live in Canada. Anthropology, genetics and linguistics, various disciplines shed light on the origin of the North Africans. Physical anthropology North Africans are defined as Mediterraneans with moderate Alpinid and Nordic elements. A significant proportion of the Rif Berbers, Kabyles and Chouas have blue or green eyes. Genetic evidence The genetic proximity observed between the North Africans and Southern Europeans is due to the fact that both these groups shared a common ancestor either in the Upper Paleolithic, in the Neolithic or alternatively during history with the invasion and the occupation during nearly 7 centuries of the Iberian Peninsula by Moorish troops. A genetic study published in January 2012 stated that the indigenous North African ancestry appears most closely related to populations outside of Africa, but divergence between Maghrebi peoples and Near Eastern Europeans likely precedes the Holocene. Y chromosome DNA The Y chromosome genetic structure of the Maghreb population seems to be mainly modulated by geography. The Y DNA haplogroups E3b and J, which are so common among the population of North African and the Middle East, haplogroups E3b and J, are the most widespread among North African groups, especially E1b1b1b, which is typical of the indigenous Berbers of Northwest Africa. In some parts of Tunisia, E1b1b1b can peak at 100% of the population. Followed by haplogroup J, especially J1, 1, which is typically Middle Eastern, which can reach frequencies of 40% in the region, and has its highest density founded in the southwestern Arabian Peninsula, followed by haplogroup A1, which has been observed in North Africa though with lower frequency. The Y DNA haplogroups shown above are observed in both Arab and Berber speakers. The North African Y chromosome pool may be summarized as follows, where only 2 haplogroups E1b1b and J comprise generally more than 80% of the total chromosomes. E1b1b, J, A1b, Sub-Saharan and other haplogroups. E1b1b1b is the most common Y haplogroup among North African Arabs and Berbers, dominated by its subclade EM183. It is thought to have originated in North Africa 5,600 years ago. Colloquially referred to as the Berber marker for its prevalence among Mozabite, Middle Atlas, Kabyle and other Berber groups, EM81 is also quite common among North African Arab groups. It can reach frequencies of up to 100% in the Greater Maghreb. Regarding J1M267, according to a recent study in 2011 about Tunisia, it is significantly more abundant in the urban than in the rural total population. According to the authors, these results could be explained supposing that Arabization in Tunisia was a military enterprise, therefore, mainly driven by men that displaced native Berbers to geographically marginal areas but that frequently married Berber women. Mitochondrial DNA Many studies have attempted to describe the genetic diversity of North African populations, evaluating mitochondrial DNA sequence variation, and the results may be summarized as follows: Algeria, Tunisia, total Eurasian lineages, K, N1, N2, X, 50 to 90% with an average of about 5/8, total Sub-Saharan lineages, 3 to 50% with an average of about 2/8, total North African lineages, 0 to 35% with an average of about 1/8. The North African mtDNA pool is characterized by an overall high frequency of Western Eurasian haplogroups, a somehow lower frequency of Sub-Saharan L lineages, and a significant presence of North African haplogroups U6 and M1. According to Cherney al. 2009, the post-last glacial maximum expansion originating in Iberia not only led to the resettlement of Europe but also of North Africa. According to Anotony al. 2010, besides the autochthonous South Saharan component, the maternal pool of Northern Africa appears to be characterized by at least two other major components: a Levantine contribution, associated with the return to Africa around 45 Kr, and a more recent West European input associated with the postglacial expansion. Until recently, some papers suggested that the distribution of the main L haplogroups in North Africa was mainly due to trans-Saharan slave trade. However, in September 2010, a thorough study about Berber mtDNA by Fragi al. concluded that most of L haplogroups were much older and introduced by an ancient African gene flow around 20,000 years ago. Autosomal DNA. In an autosomal study in 2012 by Hen al., the authors conclude that North African populations retain a unique signature of early Maghrebi ancestry, but are not a homogeneous group, and most display varying combinations of 5 distinct ancestries. The majority of their ancestry derives from populations outside of Africa and is the result of at least 3 distinct episodes: ancient back-to-Africa gene flow prior to the Holocene, more recent gene flow from the Near East resulting in a longitudinal gradient, limited but very recent migrations from sub-Saharan Africa. They observe 2 distinct, opposite gradients of ancestry: an east-to-west increase in likely autochthonous North African ancestry likely derived from back-to-Africa gene flow more than 12,000 years ago, and an east-to-west decrease in likely Near Eastern Arabic ancestry. The indigenous North African ancestry is more frequent in populations with historical Berber ethnicity. They also find significant signatures of sub-Saharan African ancestry that vary substantially among populations. According to the authors, these sub-Saharan ancestries appear to be a recent introduction into North African populations, dating to about 1,200 years ago in southern Morocco and about 750 years ago into Egypt, possibly reflecting the patterns of the trans-Saharan slave trade that occurred during this period. Admixture analysis equals. Recent genetic analysis of North African populations have found that, despite the complex admixture genetic background, there is an autochthonous genomic component which is likely derived from back-to-Africa gene flow older than 12,000 years ago. This local population substratum seems to represent a genetic discontinuity with the earliest modern human settlers of North Africa, given the estimated ancestry is younger than 40,000 years ago. North Morocco, Libya and Egypt carry high proportions of European and Near Eastern ancestral components, whereas Tunisia and Sahrawi are those populations with highest autochthonous North African component. Average ancestry proportions in North African populations estimated by admixture for K equals 4 different ancestries. Iberia, according to a recent study in 2013 by Bottigua copyright al. Using genome-wide SNP data from over 2,000 individuals, southwestern European populations averaged between 4% and 20% of their genomes assigned to a North African ancestral cluster, whereas this value did not exceed 2% in southeastern European populations. The highest North African admixture was found in Canarians, while in the Iberian Peninsula, the average was 10 to 12%. In the Iberian Peninsula, North African male haplogroups, especially E1b1b1b, E1b1b1ab and a subset of J1, are found in significant amounts with an average frequency of about 7 to 8% in the peninsula, with frequencies surpassing 10% in some regions, like 18.6% in Cantabria. Historically introduced NW African types in Italy and Iberia, as an exceptional case in Europe, EM81 has also been observed at 40%. The Paseegos from Cantabria. Concerning the level of male genetic admixture in Iberia, an important study by Adams al. 2008 that analyzed 1140 individuals in Iberia found a mean North African admixture of 10.6%, with wide geographical variation, ranging from 2.5% in Catalonia, 11.8% in North Portugal, 16.1% in South Portugal, 20.8% in Galicia to 21.7% in North Castile. mtDNA genetic studies on Iberian populations also show that North African mitochondrial DNA sequences are found at much higher levels than those generally observed elsewhere in Europe. Although the overall absolute frequency of U6 is low, this signals a possible current North African ancestry proportion of 8% to 9%, because U6 is not a common lineage in North Africa itself. U6 reaches its highest frequency in North Portugal at about 4 to 6%, where Gonzalez al. 2003 estimated a possible North African ancestry proportion of 27%. Iberia is also the region in Europe with the highest frequency of the female-mediated mtDNA haplogroup L of Sub-Saharan origin, likely a result of Berber and Arab colonization or African slave trade. Pereira al. 2005, who analyzed 1045 Iberian individuals, found Sub-Saharan mtDNA L haplogroups at rates of 11.38% in South Portugal, 5.02% in Centre Portugal, 3.21% in North Portugal and 3.26% in Galicia. According to Alvarez al. 2010, who found L haplogroups at a rate of 4.70% in the Spanish province of Zamora, as the HTS found in the area are also shared with North African populations, we cannot discard the possibility that these lineages derived from the North African Muslim permanents in the Iberian Peninsula. In another study, Xas al. 2006 extracted DNA from human remains that were exhumed from historic burial sites in Al-Andalus, Spain. The frequency of sub-Saharan lineages detected in the medieval samples was 14.6% and 8.3% in the present population of Pico de Córdoba. The authors suggest both the Muslim occupation, and prehistoric migrations before the Muslim occupation would have been the source of these lineages. Brahim et al. 2003 also found a significant sub-Saharan imprint in the autonomous regions of Portugal, with L haplogroups constituting about 13% of the lineages in Madeira and 3.4% in the Azores. Canary Islands. In Canary Islands, a study by Nicole Marca-Mayer in 2003 found mtDNA haplogroup U6 at rate of 14% in the present-day Canary Islands populations, reflecting the Berber origin of the Guanches, the Aboriginal population of the Canary Islands. In this study they compared Aboriginal Guanche mtDNA to that of today's Canarians and concluded that, despite the continuous changes suffered by the population, Aboriginal mtDNA lineages constitute a considerable proportion, 42–73% of the Canarian gene pool. mtDNA haplogroup L were also found at rate of 6.6% and EM81 at a rate of 8.28%, with frequencies over 10% in the three largest islands of Tenerife, Gran Canaria and Fuerteventura. According to Fregel al. 2009, the presence of autochthonous North African EM81 lineages, and also other relatively abundant markers from the same region in the indigenous Guanche population, strongly points to that area, North Africa, as the most probable origin of the Guanche ancestors. In this study, they estimated that, based on Y chromosome and mtDNA haplogroup frequencies, the relative female and male indigenous Guanche contributions to the present-day Canary Islands populations were respectively of 41.8% and 16.1%. An autosomal study in 2011 found an average North African influence of about 17% in Canary Islanders, with a wide inter-individual variation ranging from 0% to 96%. According to the authors, the substantial North African ancestry found for Canary Islanders supports that, despite the aggressive conquest by the Spanish in the 15th century and the subsequent immigration, genetic footprints of the first settlers of the Canary Islands persist in the current inhabitants. Paralleling mtDNA findings, the largest average North African contribution was found for the samples from La Gomera, Italy. In Sicily, the contribution of North African populations is estimated to be about 6%-8%, which shows a genetic affinity between Sicily and North Africa. In Italy, North African haplogroups were found especially in a region of southern Italy at frequency of 4.7% due to Frederick Euro unregistered trademark S relocation of Sicilian Muslims in the city of Lucera in the 13th century. Haplogroup U6 have also been detected in Sicily and southern Italy at very low levels. France. Haplogroup EM81 is also found in some regions of France, 2.70% overall, with frequency surpassing 5% in Auvergne and Île-de-France. According to a genetics study in 2000 based on HLA, French from Marseille are more or less isolated from the other Western European populations. They are in an intermediate position between the North Africans and the Western Europeans populations. According to the authors, these results cannot be attributed to recent events because of the knowledge of the grandparents' Euro unregistered trademark origin in the sample. This study reveals that the southern French population from Marseille is related genetically to the southwestern Europeans and North Africans, who are geographically close, and that a substantial gene flow has thus probably been present among the populations of these neighboring areas. Latin America. As a consequence of Spanish and Portuguese colonization of Latin America, North African haplogroups are also found throughout Latin America, especially in Brazil and Cuba, where frequencies surpass generally 5%, and among Hispanic men in USA. According to Fregel et al., the fact that male North African EM81 and female U6 lineages from the Canaries have been detected in Cuba and Ibero-America, demonstrates that Canary Islanders with indigenous Guanc ancestors actively participated in the American colonization. Other regions. In other countries, North African haplogroups can be found in France, Sudan, Somalia, Jordan, Lebanon, and amongst Sephardi Jews. Linguistics. The Greater Maghreb have hosted several languages. Berber, also known as Amaz, is the indigenous language family of the region, belonging to the Greater Afro-Asiatic family. 2,000 years ago, Punic, Berber and Latin would have alternated in communication among the populations of the western parts of North Africa and the rest of the Mediterranean basin. The Arabic language as known throughout the region nowadays arrived later in the Greater Maghreb with the historical Arab conquest and Islam. This language ousted the Berber languages in its various variants. Although the process was a long-time one, Berber has long been a very prominent language in Algeria and Morocco till our contemporary era. Romance language itself might still have existed in the Greater Maghreb in the 12th century. The Greater Maghreb once again became partly Romance with colonization. From the 1830s, the French began by conquering Algeria, where French was declared the official language of the country. It also obtains the position of highly placed languages of local elites. In today's Greater Maghreb, only modern Standard Arabic possesses the status of official language, despite Maghrebi Arabic and Berber being the languages of most people. In spite of that, French is doing well in the region at the start of the 21st century. English is becoming quite popular as a second language subject at schools across the Greater Maghreb. See also, Arabs, Berbers, Hamitic, Maghrebi Jews, Northwest Africa, Numidia, Carthage, List of Maghrebis, E1b1b1b, Berber Revolt, Berber Spring, Muslim conquest of North Africa, Berbers and Islam, Berber Jews, Arab Berber, Arabized Berber, Kabbalism, Algerianism, Berberism, Moors, Barbary Coast. References and notes. External links: The African Roots of Latin Christianity by Henri Tessier, Regional Bishop of North Africa.